Good. Can I start? Good. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for being with us in this important series, the Southeast region webinar. So, this is a collaboration between 16 chapters in the Southeast region. And I'm honored to be here with you today, as I've been in many other webinars today. So, this series of webinars bring the best of the best in terms of content that adds so much value to all of us coaches. So it improves and gives us opportunity to be better every day. So thank you for coming today. Okay. Today, oh, and this is a great opportunity also to get your CCEUs, right? So we can really leverage this opportunity to be here. So today we are going to have this webinar. So my name is Marcia Teixeira. I am the ICF South Florida president for 2021, and I'll be your moderator today. And Shirzad Chamine, so I'm honored to have Shirzad with our Southeast region today. He's going to present on the topic positive intelligence and how you multiply by 100 your impact as a coach. But before we go to the presentation, I want to give you some housekeeping information, okay? So you see that in your screen, you have at the bottom the Q&A, the raise hand, and the chat. Every question or any question you have to Shirzad, please use the Q&A box, and any other comment or the questions I'm going to ask you, generic questions, use the chat. But the questions that you have to Shirzad, please use the Q&A box, okay? And also you can raise hand, but most of the time we are going to use the Q&A and the chat for the interaction today, okay? And in case, so in the chat now, please start adding what do you want to gain from this webinar today? Okay, so what is your learning goal? What do you want to gain from the webinar today? Put in the chat. This one is for the chat, okay? While you are writing in the chat, please, I have a few Q&A common questions that people ask. May I receive a copy of the slides and the recording? Yes, the recording will be available, because usually when you answer to the evaluation at the end, you have also a link to the recording. And Shirzad, the slides also be available, or the recording only? How the slides will be provided to the people?
We'll make the slides available.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So do we receive CCEs for this webinar? Yes. So once you register, if you stay the entire webinar in person here, yes, you are eligible for CCEs. Okay. If you watch this as a recording only, no, you are not eligible to CCEs. Okay. How you get that? So you are going to receive a feedback evaluation form later. And once you answer to that, you really have the link to give evaluation, but also you receive that. And that Anik will track the attendance. And if you are on the phone, I cannot see the full list here, but if you are on the phone, please remember to send an email to Anik. Here is her email, to remind her that you attended by phone, and she can check your attendance and have your name and email to send the CCUs, okay? Now, it's my honor and privilege, Shirzad, to introduce you, the author of the amazing book, Positive Intelligence. You cannot see here, but I have my book here. I'm an alumni of this program, the 7 weeks program. Shirzad is the author and New York Times bestselling of this book, Positive Intelligence. And he has been lecturing positive intelligence at Stanford University. He guides graduate students, and he's popular and fantastic 6-week PQ training that many of us are here in this webinar participated, and many are going to participate. He has coached hundreds of CEOs and has amazing stories and experiences that we are going to have today with us. Thank you so much, Shirzad, and please, the floor is yours. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can start. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marsha. It's always great to be introduced by somebody who knows my work. I really appreciate that. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. I love being with coaches because you're kindred spirits with me. We are all in this together. Our passion and purpose is to change lives. And it's always an honor to be speaking to fellow coaches. Some of you may know I used to run CTI, Coaches Training Institute or Proactive Training Institute for 7 years. So I've been in the coaching business for a very long time. And about a couple of years ago, as I was looking at what was happening in Washington with politicians and how the forces of hate and forces of fear were on the rise, not just in the United States, but also elsewhere in the world, I started getting very concerned about our planet. And it was really clear to me that politicians were not the answer. It just was really clear to me that they are not going to be the ones who save us, who were going to save us, because they were actually causing so much of the problems. And so what I became really clear about is that coaches hold a very important key in helping us save our planet, because the survival of our very planet is at stake with the rise of hate and fear and kind of nationalism and all of these narrow confines that have been on the rise. And so at that point, what I decided is I really need to focus on how do I help coaches have far more impact how do I help them attract more clients, and how do I help them have much bigger impact on each of those clients? Because I am really clear, having been in the coaching industry for 15 years or so, that we are changing lives, but we can be doing, have so much impact individually and collectively, and that we hold the key to saving our planet. The coaches around the world, we hold the key. Politicians come and go, but we are here to stay. And so in that sense, for the past couple of years, my singular passion has been how do we enable coaches to 100x their impact in the world, because the world depends on us to do that. So that's going to be the topic of my conversation today. And so basically the way that we could help a coach 100x your impact is we want to help you 10x your impact on each of your clients. I assure you that even if you're having life-changing impact already on your clients, that we can have you significantly deepen your impact on each of your clients, and also help you attract a lot more clients. And so when you multiply 10 by 10, that's 100x. That's how we hopefully will enable you to 100x your impact in the world, because the world needs it. And so that's the basis of how we enable you to do that. The problem that we solve, and I'm going to be challenging us as a community of coaches, and say that the problem we are trying to solve here is that initial positive results of both coaching and the trainings that a lot of us do mostly evaporate. And you can just think about your own experience of having gone through all sorts of workshops, having read amazing books that you thought were life-changing, and 3 months later or 6 months later, how much of that initial euphoria is still with you? And when I ask this question from people, most of us realize the honest answer is most of the initial effect of a coaching session or a training session fizzles away. Most of it does. So the question is why? And why isn't positive change sustained? And why isn't our impact as a coach sustained very often? And that's the problem that we solve for you and with you. There are 3 primary issues that cause the drop-off in personal and professional development and coaching interventions. And those are the 3 problems that we help you address. Problem number 1 is that we often treat the symptoms rather than the root cause. And a kind of an example I have here is, there are these trainings that have people go to learn how to be more empathetic. So they go to a training and they realize, oh, to be more empathetic, you need to do active listening. You need to mirror the body language of the other person. You need to feed back to them what you've heard. These all make you seem like you're more empathetic, But this is a symptom because at the root in your brain, there might be a judge voice, a brutal critic, that if we didn't help you see that you have that voice, and didn't have you take away the power and credibility of that voice, all of these techniques of empathy we are teaching you are going to fizzle away, because at the root level, you have some more powerful forces in your mind. So if you don't treat the root level stuff, the symptoms are all going to fizzle away as we try to fix them. We need to go to the root level issues. The second issue is that we stop at insight and fail to build mental muscles to convert the insight into habits. So when you read an awesome book, when you have an awesome coaching session, when you have an awesome workshop, at best, what these things generate is new insight, new aha. Oh my God, I get it. I do X, but I should be doing Y. Oh, I get it. But then in order to do Y instead of X, that needs to become a habit of the mind. The habit of the mind doesn't come from just insight. Habit of the mind comes from practice, 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 practice. And a lot of coaching and training focuses on insight, and it doesn't build new mental muscles, habits of the mind, neural pathways in the brain that makes those insights become automatic habits. Neural pathways in the brain need to be built up. That's the muscle in the brain to create a new habit. And we often don't get to that step. And what we know is that lasting behavioral change really, lasting behavioral and emotional change requires only about 20% insight. Insight is just the starting point. There, 80% of the work is mental muscle building, building neural pathways to create new habits of the mind. And that's a big failing of both coaching and training to this date. And that needs to be solved if you want to have lasting positive impact. And the third thing is that we lack a common operating system in trying to help people with different aspects of their life. What do I mean by that? Just think about how many incompatible frameworks compete for mind share in the mind of our clients. So think about all the books and all the workshops, you know, the 7 habits of highly effective people, the 9 steps to managing conflict, the 5 pillars of motivating a team, the 18 competencies of emotional intelligence, EQ, the 4 techniques to handle stress. Every one of these books, every one of these workshops, every one of these coaching sessions ends up relying on a different framework, and these frameworks fight with each other, compete with each other for our mind share, and we barely remember any of them. And as a former engineer, I really realized the power of an operating system where, say, in Microsoft Windows, once you install Windows, then you run a bunch of applications that just use the same operating system. And the problem with personal professional development and coaching is that there is no common operating system. And therefore, we just, all of these different ways we try to help people in learning and development compete with each other and help fizzle away. And so the solution that we bring, that's a profound, field-tested, research-based solution to help you with all of these issues that I just raised is, what we have is a PQ operating system. PQ stands for positive intelligence quotient. So you have IQ, you have EQ. PQ stands for positivity quotient or positive intelligence quotient. And the PQ operating system is what we have brought to the world. It develops the root level, notice the root level mental building blocks that enable most personal and professional growth that you want to help your clients with. So we go to the root level, give you a common operating system that has all of those different things that you just saw in the previous slide, be applications of just one operating system, one framework, rather than 17 different frameworks for people to remember. So it's one operating system, many applications, which means managing stress becomes the application of the same operating system. Motivating a team is the application of the same operating system. Increasing productivity is the same application of the same simple operating system. You don't need all these different frameworks, one simple framework. So how do we And the research that enabled us to create this, this research included results from hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams. This is not an exaggeration. I know we are used to a world where there's a lot of lying and exaggeration now going on, but we literally have worked with hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams. Stanford students, including athletes, world-class athletes, by now, much more than 500,000 participants from 50 different countries. And the research is summarized in my book, Positive Intelligence, Translated to 20 Languages. The reason I say 20 languages is because I want you to know this is not just North American research. This isn't just an American thing. This is global. And we have coaches from pretty much every country on earth who is using our work today to work with their clients. The most important innovation that we brought in our research is factor analysis. And what do we mean by factor analysis? What is factor analysis? Factor analysis helps you discover the root cause of things. Remember, I kept saying root level rather than symptom. For factor analysis helps you go to the root of things. And it results in radical simplification because you're going to the root level of issues. To give you an example, at the root of thousands of colors, there are only 3 factors. There are only 3 colors. There's red, there's blue, and there's yellow. So notice how much simpler your job as a painter is if you discover, oh, I don't need to have a palette of 1,000 colors. I just need a palette of 3 colors. And with that, I can paint any canvas. That's the level of simplification that we have brought to personal and professional development and to coaching, because we have gone to the factor analysis root of what is impacting wellness, what is impacting performance, what is impacting relationships, what's at the root of it all. And the result of our factor analysis research showed that there are only 10 negative factors and there are only 5 positive factors that are at the root of all the emotional intelligence competencies, soft skills and leadership competencies, stress management, managing conflict, generating trust, selling and persuading, peak performance, happiness. All of these applications, at the root of them all, there's only 10 negative factors, there's only 5 positive factors. That's the operating system. And to kind of take it to what's happening in the brain, what I want you to know is at the neuroscience, at the brain level, my Stanford students call this work Jedi mind training. They're fans of Star Wars and say, this work is like Jedi mind training. And I asked them, what do you mean by that? And they say, well, it's, in Jedi, what you show us is that inside of our brain, there's a war going on between our inner Jedi and our inner Darth Vaders, if you understand the Star Wars metaphors. And indeed, inside our brain, there is a war going on between different voices in our head. And the name we give these voices is the saboteurs, the agents of self-sabotage, and then on the positive side, the sage, your true self, the positive one within you, the one that serves you instead of sabotages you. And so a lot of our work is about helping a client see the war inside their mind. And by the way, if you don't like the word war, you want to use your own language, but that inside your head there is a push and pull between different voices. And we help clients see that tug of war is going on inside of our head, and that the balance of power impacts everything. Who is talking in your head changes everything. And so, as I said before, our factor analysis showed that there are only 10 negative factors. We call them your saboteurs. And there are 5 sage powers. Your sage has access to 5 positive superpowers. And the other, and I'll go into detail about what these are. Very importantly, we also showed that all your saboteurs, and most people have a few saboteurs. Nobody has all 10 saboteurs. Most people have a few. They all live in a region of the brain. We call it the survival brain region. And your sage lives in a very different region. We call that your PQ brain region. Saboteurs cause all of your negative emotions. And first and foremost, what are these negative emotions? Stress. Stress is absolutely and completely generated by your saboteurs. Anxiety, fear, shame, guilt, self-doubt, superiority or inferiority, all these emotions, which in some of you may call ego, come from your saboteurs and they live in that region of your brain. On the other hand, guess what? All of your positive emotions like gratitude, love, compassion, forgiveness, curiosity, joy of creativity, being purpose-driven, being in touch with your values, being calm, clear-headed, laser-focused in action, all of those come from your sage, from that part of your brain. And your saboteurs can actually result in some success, but no happiness. As a matter of fact, I coach a lot of billionaires and a lot of CEOs, very, very successful, but not very happy at all. Why? Because they got to their success through their saboteurs. And the only path to success with happiness is to your sage. And as a matter of fact, our research shows that you'll be more successful with your sage. Your peak performance comes from sage, and you'll be much happier every step of the way. That's the only path to have both. Now, there are 3 ingredients for lasting positive change. And remember, I keep saying, how do we create lasting positive change as coaches, rather than have change that fizzles away like it so often does? And there are 3 ingredients for that. If you want to help your clients have lasting positive change that doesn't fizzle away, these are the 3 ingredients. 1, you need to help them weaken the saboteurs. 2, strengthen the sage. So, and of course, you want to do this as a coach yourself. You want to do the thing you want your clients to do, and you weaken your own saboteurs. Can you strengthen your own sage? And finally, can you boost self-command? That's a particular mental muscle to help you shift from saboteur to sage in reacting to whatever challenge that you're facing. So those are the 3 ingredients. And for the rest of the session, before we get to Q&A, I'm going to focus on each of these 3 and help you how do you do that, first and foremost for yourself, and then potentially for your clients. So let's start with the first one, which is weakening your saboteurs. There are 10 saboteurs, as I mentioned, and the first one is the judge. And the judge is the only saboteur that is universal. So it's the only saboteur where, regardless of who you are, you have a judge. The other saboteurs, it depends. Different people have different saboteurs, but the judge is the universal saboteur. And it's the voice in your head that wakes you up at 3 in the morning and says, you idiot, what's wrong with you? Why did you make that stupid mistake? When are you ever going to learn? Or it's the voice that wakes you up at 3 in the morning and says, who do you think you are to think you're going to succeed in that meeting tomorrow? You're an idiot. You're an imposter. You're not going to make it, whatever, right? So it's a voice that's constantly focusing on what's wrong with you, not what's right with you, but what's wrong with you, and beating you up and beating you up and beating you up. But that's just one dimension of the judge. The judge has 3 modes. The second mode of the judge is constantly finding what's wrong with others instead of appreciating what's right about them. And the third mode is the one that's constantly finding what's wrong with your situations and circumstances, and constantly saying, you don't have what it takes to be happy. Not yet. You don't have what it takes to be happy. You will be happy when. You'll be happy when you finally leave home and are independent from your parents. You'll be happy when you finally get to the right college. You'll be happy when you finally graduate. You'll be happy when you finally find that mate. You'll be happy when you finally have that child, when you finally have that house, when you finally have that job, have that, on and on and on and on. And then when you actually get those things, your judge will let you celebrate for an hour, a day, whatever, and then says, actually, you don't have what it takes to be happy. You'll be happy when. Constantly judging your situations and circumstances as it's not good enough for happiness. It's got to be different, right? So the judge is having a devastating impact on your wellness, causing a lot of your stress, causing a lot of your unhappiness. And every single person I've ever worked with, including myself, has a judge saboteur. And one of our most important pieces of work with our clients and starting with ourselves is intercept and discredit the lies of the judge, because the judge says, I'm your friend. If you don't use me, if you don't work with me, you're going to become lazy. Quality is going to suffer, all of these things. I need to beat you up so you improve. Nonsense, all lies. We need to discredit your judge and help you discredit your clients' judges as one of the most important pieces of our work. Then outside of that, there are 9 other saboteurs. They fit a neat little grid based on motivation and style of saboteur. Don't worry about that grid, but their names are important: controller, hyperachiever, restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, and avoider, victim, hyper-rational. What a cast of characters. And hopefully this resonates with you, because you're beginning to see, I want you first and foremost to see yourself, right? Don't worry about, oh, my husband has the controller and my daughter has such and such, or my friend has this. I would love for you to be thinking, which is your saboteur? How do you sabotage your wellness? How do you cause your own stress or other people's stress? How do you reduce your impact as a coach? How do you reduce your credibility, your confidence as a coach? And I guarantee you that the answer is in a few of these saboteurs. Most people have a few. And of course, we have a saboteur assessment that you can use for free. It only takes 5 minutes. Thousands of coaches around the world are using our saboteur assessment with their clients. It very quickly helps you narrow down the work that you need to be doing with your client. This is a saboteur assessment result from Sarah, who is an actual vice president of an actual company. Now, we very quickly, in 5 minutes, she got these results, which as a coach allows us to say, well, Sarah, let's make sure we start working on stickler and hyperachiever to begin with. Of course, it needs to resonate with the client. So if Sarah said the stickler doesn't resonate with me, then we would have said, well, okay, which one does? And let's work on the hyperachiever, maybe restless, whatever resonates with you. And sooner or later, she would also realize that maybe she wants to work with the stickler too. So we basically have the saboteur assessment. I'll tell you at the end of the session how to get the saboteur assessment for yourself and others and your clients. And we can definitely do a long Q&A on it if you wish. For each of the saboteurs, we have the stickler. Like for the stickler, we have a description of the saboteur. And then we can help somebody understand how to intercept that saboteur so that when that saboteur shows up, so basically the technique is we help you become very clear about your saboteurs. What are the lies of your saboteurs? What are the emotions it causes in you? So that the moment you see those patterns show up in you, you label it instantly and say, oh, there goes my stickler. Oh, there goes my judge. So you label it and let it go. You don't fight it. You don't get upset at it, because if you fight it, if you get upset at it, you're injecting negativity, which is actually worsening the problem. So we actually want you to calmly, patiently, compassionately say, oh, there goes my saboteur. I'm not going to listen to her or him. There's the judge, there's the stickler, and let go of that thought and emotion. And we'll tell you then to do a technique that shifts brain activation so that you can begin to shift to sage. And so again, I hope you don't mind, but I don't look at questions and chats as I give you the overall view here. because there's some basics I want to cover, and then I'm going to get into very detailed Q&A. So if you allow me, I'm going to continue going. So basically, what I just shared with you is how do you weaken your saboteurs or your client saboteurs? Then how do you strengthen your sage? That's the second ingredient for lasting positive change. And so who is the sage? The sage lives in a region of the brain that's associated with positivity and the 5 core powers of the sage. What are these powers? Empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. So empathize is clear, deep compassion and forgiveness and understanding and empathy for yourself and others. Explore is about beginner's mind, openness to ideas and discovery. Innovate is about out-of-box thinking. Navigate is being guided by a sense of meaning and purpose and being in touch with an inner compass. And activate is about being calm, clear-headed, and laser-focused in action so that you're fierce and fearless in action. So whatever the issue is, a combination of these 5 sage powers is all you need to handle the challenge. And the sage operates from what we call the sage perspective. It brings a sage perspective to every challenge that you face. So what is the sage perspective? The sage perspective is that absolutely every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and opportunity. Every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and opportunity. And it's, your saboteurs would say, this is insane, this is crazy, there are some bad things that are just bad things, and if it happens to me, I should be upset about it. There is no gift here, right? So the saboteurs don't believe the sage perspective at all. And to kind of bring this perspective to life, I want to tell you the story that comes from Taoist China, which brings to life the wisdom of the sage perspective. And it's the story of a sage old farmer that lives in a village, and he has a stallion that he loves. And one day he enters his stallion in a village competition for stallions, and his stallion wins first prize. His neighbors are very excited. They come to congratulate him. You're so happy your stallion won first prize. And the farmer says, who knows what is good and what is bad? That's a very strange response. The neighbors are puzzled. They go away. A week or so passes. The thieves in the area have discovered this stallion has won first prize. He's more precious. He's more expensive. So they actually come and steal the stallion. The neighbors bring their condolences. And once again, the farmer says, who knows what is good and what is bad? Another strange response. The neighbors are puzzled. They go away. A week or so passes. The stallion is a very free-spirited stallion. He breaks away from his captors. He finds his way back to the farmer's farm. Along the way, he befriends all these precious wild mares. He enters the farmer's farm himself with all these precious wild mares. The neighbors bring their congratulations. And once again, the farmer says, who knows what is good and what is bad? Strange response. The neighbors think this guy is losing his mind. These are crazy answers. They go away. A week or so passes. The farmer has a young adult son who is riding one of these wild mares to try to tame her, and he's thrown to the ground and he breaks his leg. The neighbors bring their condolences, and once again the farmer says, who knows what is good and what is bad? Wow, by this time the neighbors are certain this guy is losing his mind. We got to go get some help for him. These are crazy answers. They go away. A week or so passes. A war has broken out in that region of the imperial kingdom. The military comes from village to village to take away the able-bodied young adults to war as soldiers, and they can't take the farmer's son because the farmer has a broken leg. By this time in the story, the neighbors have gotten the picture. They don't even bother to come and bring their congratulations to the farmer because they know what the farmer is going to say. What is the farmer going to say? Please say it with me so you can remember it. Who knows what is good and what is bad? So there is really profound wisdom in this story from Taoist China. And if there's nothing else you remember from this talk, please remember that. It is profoundly life-changing if you live your life through the sage perspective. Now, there's a way where in the story, the farmer is passive. The farmer just has spiritual leap of faith. The farmer waits passively for a quote-unquote bad thing to show up and be converted into a good thing. However, that's not how we teach this. A lot of the CEOs that I coach, they have, let's say about half of them have a spiritual belief system. And the ones who have a spiritual belief system, they usually say to me, Shirzad, you know, the sage perspective you talk about, this is actually what my spiritual tradition teaches. It teaches that you know, there's a reason for everything. Don't question the will of God, you know, trust it, embrace it. See what the gift is. And I say, okay, great. If your spiritual belief system teaches this, then wonderful. Use the sage perspective as a way of living your spiritual teachings. Awesome, great. But the other half of the CEOs that I coach, they are either atheists or agnostics. They don't have a spiritual belief system. What I tell them is, don't believe the sage perspective as a spiritual leap of faith. Believe the sage perspective as a self-fulfilling prophecy. If something quote unquote bad happens and you say, this is bad, this is terrible, I'm upset, all of that stuff, you go into such negative energy. All your saboteurs come up. You activate the saboteurs of people around you. And before you know it, you waste so much mental and emotional energy to try to deal with the situation. So a bad thing, actually, quote unquote, bad thing costs you a lot of mental, emotional energy to try to get your way out of it. And you're all tunnel visioned in the negative brain. That's not very thoughtful or resourceful. But if you really said, you know, this quote unquote bad thing has happened, it's actually not a bad thing. I can and I shall convert it into a gift and opportunity. How do I convert it into a gift and opportunity? This failure, this mistake, this thing that went wrong. How do I convert it into a gift and opportunity? Notice what's happening in your brain. You're staying positive, you're staying optimistic, you're staying curious, you're activating the region of your brain that's wired for creativity, for resourcefulness, for figuring out what the gift could be. You generate the gift through your own positivity and generating positivity in others. So when your sage says, I can and I shall convert this into a gift and opportunity, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When your saboteur says, this is bad, 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 why is it happening to me? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It will become even worse, right? So the sage perspective is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The question is, when all the things in a day or in a week or in a month go bad or wrong for you, what's the self-fulfilling prophecy you bring? Is it the saboteur self-fulfilling prophecy that's bad? Or is it the sage that says, I can convert this into a gift? And imagine what happens to your stress if you deeply believe that anything that happens, you can convert it into a gift. Then what's to stress about? You try to get this and you work for it to get this. But you know, if this doesn't happen, and if the opposite happens, you can turn that into a gift too. So what's there to stress about? If you live out of the sage perspective, all stress disappears. Just notice the power of that and bringing that to your clients and to yourself first. So, so that's how you strengthen your sage and strengthen your own clients' sage. And finally, we want you to get to boosting your self-command muscle so that you're able to shift from saboteur to sage by commanding your mind to stop bring the saboteur reaction and shift to the sage reaction to things, including the sage perspective. And the way we do that self-command muscle, is through these things we call a PQ rep. And this is very popular with our clients and with the coaches that we have trained and their clients. So let me teach you a little bit of what this is. So a PQ rep, so think about it. If I want to build up my bicep muscle, I'll take a dumbbell and I'll do 1 rep, I'll do 2 reps, I'll do 3 reps. With each of them, my bicep muscle gets a little stronger. Now, what about the muscle in the brain? That's the self-command muscle that sees me in action and says, oops, this thing has gone bad, for example. You're about to get hijacked by your saboteur and go negative and all stressed and all that. Stop, just stop. Stop, don't react in the negative with the saboteurs. I command you, my mind, I command you to quiet that region of the brain where the saboteur's reaction lives and activate the region of the brain where the sage lives. Where does this self-command comes from? That's a certain neural pathway in the brain we need to strengthen. And the way to strengthen it is by these 10-second PQ reps. So each of those reps is like a dumbbell rep for the self-command muscle. So let's practice one of them. They just take 10 seconds, right? So please do this with me. Take 2 fingertips and gently rub them against each other. Gently rub 2 fingertips against each other with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. So gently rub 2 fingertips against each other with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. So you got that? So that was about 10 seconds. Now, if we had your head under functional MRI machine, what we would have noticed that even with just this 10-second thing you did, you ever so slightly quieted the region of your brain where your saboteurs under stress and upset lives, and ever so slightly activated the region of your brain where your sage lives, with access to the sage perspective and access to those awesome 5 sage powers. Now, of course, just one will not do it, but what if you did a lot of them? And in my book, there are more than 100 ways that I show you how to do PQ reps. And in our trainings, we teach people a lot of ways, and we have guided audio sessions to actually guide you through a lot of them so that you build up this this critical mental fitness muscle of self-command, again, for yourself and your clients. So notice the simplicity of the operating system. We make life so much simpler. Life is challenging, and we don't have an operating manual for it. And we now give you an operating manual. It is so simple. And here's the simplicity of it. If you're feeling negative emotions, stop. You are in saboteur mode. And again, what do I mean by negative emotions? I mean stress, anger, shame, guilt, self-doubt, disappointment, all of these things. The exception is grieving. So we do say grieving is actually sage. Grieving is about loving and honoring. So grieving is not a negative emotion, but all of these other ones, they are helpful for a second to wake you up. Beyond that, they're not serving you. You want to stop, label yourself in saboteur mode. You want to do some PQ reps to quiet the saboteurs and to activate your sage so that you have access to the sage perspective and powers. Then you want to assume the sage perspective that every problem can be converted into a gift and opportunity. And then generate the gift, create the gift by using the sage powers like empathy, curiosity, creativity, calm, clear-headed action. Profoundly life-changing, very simple to do, very simple to learn. And I can't tell you how many people every day write to us and say, we have changed our life because of the simplicity of having a way to live this crazy, challenging thing called life. And of course, some coaches tell us, oh, but what about the negative emotions? Staying with your emotions so that you know what's happening underneath the emotions. Trust me, as you shift to sage, the sage will tell you what's underneath the negative emotion. If you stay angry, you're not going to figure out, why am I angry? If you shift to sage, you're going to realize, oh my God, that anger is about such and such. So you actually discover the underlying issues with your negative emotions best after you shift to Sage. So notice that we are inviting you to do traditional coaching and augment it with also being a trainer. What do we mean by that? The coaching techniques that you have learned, ICF methodology of coaching is incredibly helpful. I mean, again, I was running CTI for 7 years. I understand the power of pure coaching. So the coach draws out inherent wisdom of the client, powerful, open-ended questions, those kinds of things that we all know and love, right? But we also want you to bring in a trainer element, educate your client on foundational science and tools of mental operating system. And the intersection between the two is what the two complementary modes to create PQ coaching, which has a much more profound and lasting impact on each of your clients. Why do I say that? Because I guarantee you, you can ask your clients for the next 10 years, powerful, open-ended questions about what's happening in your brain. Your client is never going to figure out from powerful questions that they are of two brains, that they are neurochemically different, that there's such a thing as a self-command muscle, that there's such a thing as the saboteurs with the, the lies of each of the saboteurs. And it's much harder to get to some of the neuroscience and some of these practices. It's actually pretty impossible. A coach doesn't have that wisdom. That's where a trainer comes in. That's where the education comes in. That's where some of these tools come in. The PQ rep is something you need to teach your client. They are not going to come up with it from powerful coaching, open-ended questions, right? So the intersection between the two is what I'm inviting you to do. And that's what will catapult us to a much higher level of impact. So basically, that's how we will have you 10x your impact on each client, 10x your number of clients, and have far more impact. And how do you 10x your number of clients? Well, think about it. This operating system we just showed you can help you initially, initially with a client. When I get started, we apply the operating system. Let's say I'm working with an executive and his issue is with performance of his team. So we apply the operating system to that. But then the next month, his issue is with, his marriage falling apart. It's the same operating system. It's the same controller saboteur he has over here that we have been working on now gets applied to saving his marriage, remove the controller, remove the judge, shift to the sage power of empathy, right? So the same exact thing now gets applied to saving his marriage, now gets applied to having him be a better father to his teenager instead of being such a controller, right? Each of these, and then to stress management, because the operating system applies to so many things, I can have him now realize, first of all, I can stay with this coach for a much longer time because we don't run out of things to do. And then he's going to refer me to somebody over here who needs to save his marriage, refer me to somebody over here who needs to, get along with their teenager, refer me to somebody over here who has this other need, because he knows that the operating system we bring applies to so many different things. So your reference, network becomes so much more powerful. And the other thing that happens is you begin to be differentiated as a coach, saying, I don't just bring insight in coaching sessions. I help you build mental muscles that take those insights into making them habits of the mind. And so in that, what we have created, like I said, I wanted to make sure that we help coaches from around the world step into this ability. So what we started doing starting last year is gifting our training to coaches. So basically, we have waived the $1,000 fee for the 7-week app-guided PQ coach training that we do. Our coaches were our #1 clients. They were paying us $1,000 for our program. We stopped charging coaches for the program. We turned it into a grant. And I think Marsha, who introduced me, has been one of the people who benefited from that grant. And so we basically have had more than 15,000 coaches in previous 5 cohorts since last year go through the program because we have made it free. We waived the fee for coaches. And cohort 6 registration, by the way, is coming right up. So the deadline for cohort 6 is April 12th, Monday, April 12th. So it's coming right up. If you're interested, you got to jump on this and apply. And the details are positiveinterns.com/100x. A little bit of a clue, you need to be with 2 other coaches who form a support accountability pod. So if you want to apply, you may want to reach out to a couple of friends to apply with you, because you want to be placed in a pod, support accountability pod. And the deadline is coming up. So with that, I hope I didn't go too fast. We have plenty of time for Q&A. And I am going to come back to you, Marsha, and see how you would like to conduct the Q&A.
Yes. Thank you, Shirzad, and thank you for the inspiring content. Always good to remember many of the things that you were telling us, because the learning process is amazing. So we have a few questions here, and so the first one is Carla asked that. So can you give us more insight on how to help our clients after they take the self-saboteur assessment as coaches? So how we use this in a coaching session? Can you give us this insight?
Yeah, we want to make sure that we don't use the saboteur assessment the way some other typing systems are used. We don't tell the client, the system says you have this thing, you are this type, you have to work on it. We don't do it that way. We show the client the saboteur assessment and we say, let's start with the top scoring one. And of course, a description of it. Does it resonate with you? And vast majority of times it does. But if the client says the stickler doesn't resonate with me, I don't see it in myself, we say, oh, that's totally fine. Let's go to the next one. Does that resonate with you? And so we have the client basically go to a place of resonance and then look at the price they're paying for that saboteur. We help them see that that saboteur is not your friend, because the client has been convinced that being a controller is good for them, being a judge is good for them, being a pleaser is good for them, right? So we want to make sure they really get the devastating negative impact of the saboteur on them. And then we begin to teach them these techniques of how do you recognize the saboteur when it comes up? How do you label it when it comes up? How do you not get upset at it? Don't fight it. Don't get angry with it. Those are all negative. How do you just compassionately say, oh, there goes my saboteur again. No, I'm not going to listen to this one. I'm going to do my PQ reps, shift my brain activation, assume the sage perspective, and now see which of the 5 sage powers are helpful. So you help your clients with that.
Thank you. And there was another question that you just answered, that is, how do you help clients identify saboteurs if they don't think they have any? So you explained that process, so you already answered. Mm-hmm.
I always tell my clients, I lead with example. I say, dear client, I have a judge, saboteur, who is so ugly. I call him the executioner. He is in my mind every hour of every day. And he has gone from a giant who used to dominate my life to just a tiny version of himself, but he's still there. And I am vigilant about him. And oh, by the way, I have the avoider saboteur, I have the pleaser saboteur. This is how I'm working on it. So first of all, I lead by example. I share with them my own saboteurs. I share with them how I use the saboteur work within my family, how my daughter knows. How I've asked my daughter, you don't have to listen to me if I'm screaming at you, because that's my judge. Don't trust my judge. If I shift to sage and then I ask you something, okay, great, please do that. But if I'm in judge mode, you don't have to listen to my judge, right? So I share with them how powerful my own practice is. I believe in authenticity. I don't believe in teaching or coaching stuff we don't do ourselves. So I want to make sure, as you go through the 7-week program we just talked about, which a lot of coaches call life-changing, that you apply it to yourself first, because I want you as a coach to come up with your own narrative for how this work is profoundly life-changing for yourself. Yeah. And then you have your own narrative, makes you credible. And then it's going to be very weird for a client to hear you and say, you are a loser, you have these saboteurs. I don't have any saboteurs. I've never, ever, ever, ever had any client look at the saboteur assessment and say, I don't have any of these. It has never happened. I doubt it's going to happen for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jim asked, what are the range of scores? So if you can explain the assessment, if you can just say the range.
Saboteur assessment 0 to 10. And we don't care about the absolute score. So we care about relative score. So if a client has her top saboteur scores are 4, and then the others are 3 or 2 or 1, we just have her focus on the 4. It doesn't, the absolute score doesn't matter as much as for you, client, which of them is higher for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of us have saboteurs, all of us could work on them.
Mm-hmm. So another question, Shirzad, how this program relates to the Enneagram theory?
Yeah, we have people, we have fans of Enneagram. Let us know there are real similarities they see. And I don't know Enneagram very well. I have relatively superficial experience of it. A lot people know a lot more. The key thing I caution people about is while there are a lot of similarities, I want to make sure if you're a big fan of Enneagram, you don't project the Enneagram type to the thing that feels more similar over here, because our intention is quite different. We never tell somebody you are this type. We have people focus on a few top saboteurs, not just one, the judge and a few others. And then we also don't really press what type they are. So the way we use it, we go about using it is very different from typing system of any kind. So if you're a big fan of Enneagram, I'd love for you to not necessarily project that it's so similar that you want to bring your understanding into here. You got to read the descriptions of these type carefully enough to make sure that you see the differences and apply it in the way that's intended to be applied.
Thank you, Shirzad. Have you ever had any type of feedback of the names of the saboteurs in the corporate setup or the personal, so the use of naming the
Yeah.
labels of the saboteur in the corporate world?
Yeah, I am very research oriented, and I work with Stanford MBA students, and a lot of my coaches' clients have been corporate people. And uh, actually, so this is really important for me. When I was running CTI and then just surrounded in the world of coaching, at some point I realized that we as coaches too often use language and terminology that is too spiritual or too psychological, and it turns off a lot of potential clients. New age spiritual psychological language, unfortunately, are very common amongst coaches. And when we are amongst ourselves, I am all about spiritual language, right? Because this work actually is ultimately about spiritual awakening. Who is the sage? It's that inner spiritual being in you, right? So this work is about spiritual awakening. But if you read my book, and if you look at my language, I never use words that trigger somebody say, oh, this is spiritual stuff, I don't want to deal with it. Oh, this is new age stuff. So very careful about language. And so our naming of the saboteurs went through several iterations to make sure that it works with every audience. So we don't have any reaction back from our corporate users or from the spiritual community or from any other community saying this language doesn't work with us, because we really wanted to make sure that we stuck with universal language that didn't turn off any particular group, because we really want to, we want to change the world, and you need to be able to be embraced by people in the culture that they have rather than turn some people off.
Okay, thank you. There are some questions about the program that I will combine in a minute, but I will go for this first. So one person asked Tom, don't you need some saboteurs to push for excellence?
That's a very important question that actually your clients are going to ask. So the client is going to say, I need my judge to keep telling me what's wrong so that I improve myself. The controller says, without me, nothing gets done. So basically, a very important distinction we make is this. If you go through our 7-week coach training, what we begin to teach you is that one way to look at a saboteur is that it has taken your greatest strength and converted it into your greatest weakness by overusing it or abusing it. We want you to keep that strength, but have your sage use that strength. Let me give you an example. An example is, if you tell me somebody has the stickler saboteur, what I will tell you is that person, one of their natural strengths and powers is their ability to bring order to chaos, to look at ambiguous or chaotic things and bring order and structure to it. That's an awesome strength to have if your sage is using it. What does the stickler do? The stickler uses that strength and overuses it and abuses it by trying to make everything perfect and has you feel so anxious if everything is not perfect. And so all of a sudden it has become a saboteur because it's causing so much anxiety for you and for everybody else around you. It's constantly discouraging people. Why isn't it perfect enough? Why isn't it perfect enough? And by trying to make everything perfect, it makes you not pay attention to the 20% of things that do need to be perfect. Because the sage says, only 20% of the stuff you're trying to do really need to be perfect. The other 80%, good enough is good enough. Don't be fixated on these, really focus on these and have fun at it. And so the sage will actually create more perfection than the stickler that tries to make everything perfect. So that's just one example. Like you can take every saboteur and say, what's the strength it's abusing? Use that strength through the sage, but don't pay the price by having the saboteur use it. The judge, for example, if I make a mistake, is it important for me to feel shame or guilt or angry or upset that I made a mistake? Yes. Why? Because if I don't feel any negative emotion, if I make a mistake and causing failure, if I don't feel any negative emotion, then I'll just keep doing it. It will not improve, right? So very important to feel anger at myself or stressed or upset. But for how long? For just 1 second. As a wake-up call. Oh my God, I just made a mistake. Oh my God, what do I do? And then turn positive to how do I now work on it? So the judge is not at all helpful because the judge keeps me stressed and keeps beating me up and keeps saying, well, when are you going to improve? I want to wake up and say, oh my God, I made a mistake. And then shift to sage that says, hey, Shirzad, I love you. I totally adore you. I love you. You just made a really big mistake. What are we going to do about it now? To turn it into a gift, to overcome it. That positivity has me take action, right? So no, you do not need your judge to keep improving yourself. You need your sage. You don't need any of your saboteurs because the language I use is that it's good to feel pain when you touch a hot stove for a second. It's a wake-up call. It gives you important information, but the saboteurs keep your hand on the hot stove and have you feel, why is life so hard? Because they keep you feeling angry. They keep you feeling upset. They keep you feeling stressed. More than a second of negative emotion, not very useful. That's what the saboteurs do to you.
Thank you, Shirzad. Two questions here I will combine, and people are asking where to get the assessment and also an example of the PQ reps. And I think I combining these two questions because I know the answer is in the same place. So
yeah. So I just want to double check so I don't give you the wrong stuff. So positiveintelligence.com, and then the question is then slash, and if you do a slash after positiveintelligence.com, if after slash you put assessments, that will get you the saboteur assessment. If you do positiveintelligence.com slash 100x, 100x, then you get all the details on the grant that I was just talking about, the 7-week program for coaches. Its deadline is on Monday, so I would really encourage you to go do that today if you want to apply.
And the website also brings, I think, 2 recorded PQ reps that people can listen to that, right? Yeah. So another question here: how do you explain to clients where saboteurs come from and why we have them, without getting into psychology or therapy?
Yeah, this saboteurs. So it's a really easy one. When we are kids, life is a pretty threatening place. Our very life, the human child is very vulnerable. Our lives are in the hand of other people, such as our parents. And so when you think about the human child is a very vulnerable being for a long time. And so we come up with mental patterns and reactions and strategies to make life safer for ourselves physically and emotionally. So saboteurs are the mental habits and patterns we develop in order to make life safer for ourselves to survive. So there are survival strategies. And the reason that the judge is universal is because from millions of years of evolution, paying attention to the negative was helpful for evolution. So if you were in the jungle and a tree started shaking and you didn't know what was going to emerge from behind the tree, if you were paranoid, if you always assumed the worst, if you always focused on the negative, if you said, this must be a tiger coming to eat me alive, and you ran, that negative orientation was helpful to your survival because 99 out of 100 times you were wrong, but the one time you were right, it saved your life. But if you had been very positively oriented and you said, I don't know what's going to emerge from the tree, but I have a good feeling today. I'm very optimistic. I think it's going to be a koala bear coming to give me a big hug. How long do you think that ancestor lasted? So a focus on the negative was helpful for the survival of our ancestors. That's why the judge is pre-wired in us as these saboteurs we all have, the amplification of the negative and anxiety and paranoia. Very good for survival, but not very good for happiness, which is why, because evolution cared about you surviving dangers enough to become an adult and make children and pass your genes, it didn't really care about your happiness. So that's why we get locked into these saboteurs to survive. But then we don't have a mechanism for, okay, I survive, now what? How do I be happy? How do I stop being so anxious, so negative, so stressed all the time? Evolution doesn't care about that.
Good. So now we have a few questions about the program, right? So one person, Dom, is asking if there is a certification process for the PQ operating system.
Yeah, we definitely have. The 7-week program is foundational work. So it's basically giving you all of the stuff that I said and actually having you practice. There's a very important part of this is an app that has you practice 15 minutes. Actually, I think there's a slide that I have, maybe easier for me to describe what the program is. So the logistics of the program, 7 weeks duration, weekly 1-hour video session that you watch on your own time. They become available on a weekend. You watch it at your own time. 15 minutes a day of practicing on the app. That's how you build up the muscle strength. It's a mental fitness program. We want you to practice the muscle strength. The app is a very critical part of it, and you cannot get the app as a consumer. You can only get the app through the program. And you read 8 chapters of the book or listen to the audio of it. It's inside the app, the audio version of the book. I guide you through it. It's part of it. It's compatible with all major training and certification programs, applies to all niche focus areas, including executive coaching, team coaching, and life coaching. We do not need to call yourself a PQ coach, change your niche, or abandon your current coaching methodology. We have people from every coaching school. The 7-week, 8 sessions. First week is on PQ reps, self-command muscle, I just shared with you about. Second week, we practice the judge saboteur. Third week, we practice the accomplice saboteur. You choose what saboteur you want to work on. The app gives you specific coaching based on your saboteur in week 3. Then the sage perspective, then sage's 5 powers, then sage's 5 powers again. So we work on sage powers a lot. How to 10x your impact on each client would be week 7, and how to 10x your client base is the week after that. And so basically, it's a client. We don't ask for payment, credit card, anything. This is really a grant. There is no strings attached. Every previous course has been oversubscribed, and basically, yeah. And so this is the main thing. 80% of the benefits of the program will come from daily app guided practices. The question is, will you do it? And our problem is, since we are gifting you, you don't have skin in the game. So our big risk is because we are gifting this to you, you may take it for granted and not do the daily practices, which is why, so we have built in an application process. So yeah, you declare your commitment that you're actually going to do the work, even though you're not paying for it. And then we want to have you be in a support accountability pod of usually it's 3 people. So find 2 other coaches that are going to do it with you so that you're in a pod. We want to make sure everybody's in a pod. So if you're applying, reach out, make sure a couple of friends are applying with you so you're in a pod together.
Mhm. And Shirzad, there is a question about, do you have to have the two other people to form your PQ pod before you join the course, or do you need to have the pod formed to register?
We prefer if you come with your own pod because you already have those relationships and it helps. If you come in without a pod and it's a real concern, we can help you find a pod.
And when people register, how long after they will get the answer that they were accepted?
We are on top of it right now. So it's because we are near deadline, we are on top of it. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll be very quick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Okay.
just a one-page application. It'll take you 10 minutes to do.
Mm-hmm. So there is another question about the program here regarding the CCUs, and the person is asking, the program does not provide CCUs, but recently you sent an email. Can you explain the CCUs process for the program?
Yeah, I think I'm not 100% sure. I think we are still in application process for the 7 week. I know that after the 7 week, there is advanced training to go even deeper. And for that, we just got a huge number of ICFs,
Yeah.
CCUs. So I know that we just got a ton of CCUs, but I think it's for the more advanced
Okay.
hours. And I'm not exactly sure about the 7 week yet. It's in the
Good.
works.
Good.
Yeah.
So one question here, but I think it's not super clear. There is a person asking about where is the grant money coming from? So is this?
No. So this is coaches were the #1 people buying our $1,000 program. They were our #1 audience. And last year we decided we are no longer going to charge coaches. So we are granting the $1,000. We are the ones providing the grant, paying for it through other work we do with businesses so that coaches don't have to pay.
Good. So we asked the questions about the program. There is a new question that is about the positive intelligence and how it differs from positive psychology as a coaching framework.
Yeah, if you read the book, I'll show you that we have synthesized the latest research in positive psychology. There's a lot of reference in the book, which research, cognitive behavioral psychology. There's a lot of elements of cognitive behavioral psychology, performance science, because a lot of this is also about how do you perform better, do better, and neuroscience. So those are the 4 branches of science we have synthesized into original positive research, intelligence research that has involved more than 500,000 people. So it combines all of those. The problem with just positive psychology stuff is that, it says, yeah, do gratitude. It's awesome to do gratitude. Of course it is, but it doesn't give you enough tools. And like neuroscience too, you read books on neuroscience, you understand your brain, but then what do we do differently when you're sitting in a tough meeting and your boss is screaming at you, right? So what we have done is take all these beautiful areas of research, and because we did the factor analysis, we took it all to said, what's the tool then? What's the actual saboteur? What's the actual thing you do to activate empathize, or to activate explore, or to activate innovate? What do you do to activate these parts of the brain? So our work, because we work with very tough customers, like tough CEOs, tough heads of sales, tough Stanford athletes, it's very, very pragmatic. If you're not getting anything from this, I hope you're beginning to see how pragmatic it is, how practical it is, how simple it is to do these tools and to build up the mental muscles. So we have taken all of the research and even a lot of the spiritual stuff that you recognize in it, and without calling it those things, made it very operational. Like, how do you operationalize this spiritual percept that when something happens, trust it, don't question what happens? There's wisdom. How do you work with that? Well, what we do, like with the sage perspective, there's a whole chapter on the sage perspective, and there's a technique we teach you, the 3 gifts technique, where there are 3 very specific different ways to turn anything that happens into a gift. And during that week in the program, we have you practice the 3 gifts technique. Everything that goes wrong that week, everything that doesn't go your way, you you apply one of those 3 gifts ways so that you convert it into a gift. So it's very, very practical. And the app is a very critical part of it. And then, yeah, so then we also, yeah, I think I've said enough. I'm repeating
Good.
myself now.
Thank you. Thank you. There is a huge movement of pods forming in this chat today, Shirzad. So people are already organizing themselves. So there is this question about how, when they are applying, how they name themselves the pod or something. So I don't want to answer that. If you answered,
Yeah,
please.
that will be very clear. So long as you know who your pod members are, then you specify it when you apply, and us customer service is totally on top of it, and they'll assign you to each other. So that's awesome if you find each other.
Mhm. Good. We have one more about the explanation you gave about the PQ reps here, how the fingertip exercise activate the sage and the self-command. The
Yeah.
person is asking you, can you say more about that?
Yeah, so those of you who do meditation and mindfulness, you probably are seeing some similarities. So the question is, what is the connection? And what is the connection? And just like with everything else, what we do is go to the root level, the building block root level, rather than the higher level. So when you think about it, every meditation and mindfulness practice is a special form of doing PQ reps. So PQ rep is just the building block of which meditation and mindfulness are just a special form. So all of the research with meditation and mindfulness and how it rewires your brain, how it has you feel less stressed, how it has you be more in touch with the creative part of yourself and make better decisions. All of those research applies to when you do PQ reps, because PQ rep is the building block of all those things. And on top of it, the beauty of PQ repping is we have had lifelong meditators. We had the CFO of a very famous company, a guru company, who was actually teaching. He's a Hindu, and he was teaching meditation in a Hindu temple every weekend, lifelong meditating teacher. He said our program was life-changing for him. And we said, why? And he said, well, I had learned as a lifelong meditator that I can activate that part of my brain that feels calm and all those great stuff when I was in my meditation room with my eyes closed, having the music, having the mantra, whatever. But I would come to work, and work was work. Work was tense. Work, my eyes were open. I couldn't do all of that mantra, whatever, and I was work mode. And he said with PQ reps, he had figured out how to activate that region of the brain with his eyes open in the middle of a tough meeting. And then, so a lot of lifelong meditators, they love PQ repping because you can do it with your eyes closed, you can do it with your eyes open, you can do it in the middle of a challenging day. So that's not just meditation room that brings calm to you. You can actually bring it in the middle of when you need brain activation to shift to sage. So that's how we make the connections.
Good. And there is another question here. When the registration ends on April 12, when is the training really starting, and what is the time
Yeah.
commitment? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, we end registration on April 12th. We spend the rest of the week making sure all the pods are formed and ready to go. And starting on Saturday of that week, which is not this Saturday, but next Saturday, you get your first video. So every week, the first video becomes available, 1 hour video becomes available. On Saturday, you have the weekend or Monday to watch it. And then the app guides you for 15 minutes a day of practice, Monday through Friday. So that's how you build up the muscle power during
Mhm.
those days.
And Shirzad, was the assessment, these assessments that you have in the website, your first assessment that you created?
I've been in I was a master's in electrical engineering, worked at Bell Labs, then was an MBA. I've had a very multifaceted background. So I created a bunch of different assessments in other areas, but this was the first. The Saboteur assessment and PQ Score assessment were first ones for positive intelligence, but they've gone through a lot of iterations. We have such massive data that we are constantly looking at our data and fine-tuning it. So it's a living body of research.
Thank you. And What do you recommend to someone who already applied but didn't have a pod at that time?
Uh, if ideally, you would still find people who have either applied or can apply at your recommendation and suggest that that's what you want your pod to be as a last resort. If you haven't found it, email customer support, which is support@positiveintelligence.com, and seek help with that.
Good, thank you. There are people asking about the full program. Where do they get the information about the full program after the
Yeah.
7 weeks?
Right now, basically, I would just say go to 100x positiveintelligence.com/100x, and pretty much every question you have, it's a very long page with a lot of FAQ, and pretty much a lot of these will be answered there.
Good, good. So, Shirzad, I have a question to you just to finalize here in our time. So I went to the 7 weeks program. I know people that went to the full program, and I've been practicing with many clients. And so it's a testimonial in a sense, it's a self-use. And how we as coaches, the more we practice, what else can we tell them about the neuroscience, their brains? They become very curious when they practice that and they want to learn more, but they don't want to become neuroscientists. So, what else can we have besides your website? Or is there anything new that we can share or tell in terms of the all the research that you've been doing, right?
Yeah, well, the book is the best starting point, because there is one chapter and there's an entire appendix all on the neuroscience, and it gives you more than most people ever need to know. And ultimately, what we do is, like, when you start your own practice, you'll have 12 minutes guided sessions. There's 2 minute, 5 minute, and 12-minute guided PQ sessions in the app. And ultimately, people become believers when they experience themselves shifting. When they go into a PQ gym session, we call it, all stressed about this thing and this thing and this thing, and come out of it saying, oh my God, it's so clear how to handle this. It's so clear, this doesn't matter. And as they shift, as they feel the shift, then they become real believers. So typically, we just give people enough data so that they get curious, but we are also aware that the hyper rational, which is one of the saboteurs, wants data and data and more data and more data, and that's actually a trap. So we give people enough to say, do you have enough to go give it a try? Because it's only in the experience that you're going to discover for yourself the truth of this practice. So in that sense, we also want to make sure there's a balance to how much we answer in terms of detailed questions, because a lot of times, especially for the hyper rationals, it's a trap.
Yes. Oh,
and for the avoiders, like the hyper rationals, the avoiders who always want the excuse not to take action. I don't have enough information yet to take action. So watch out what your saboteurs are doing before you're willing to actually go generate the results for yourself, because the results will take some doing. They'll take you practicing. And my invitation to you all is to, let's be honest with ourselves and our clients. I look you in the eye. I am willing to look you in the eye and say that this program is life-changing if you do the practice, if you actually watch the videos, if you actually do 15 minutes a day of practice in the app, because because it's about mental fitness, about building those muscles. And if you're not serious enough about change for yourself, first and foremost, don't waste your time, because I don't want to perpetuate the lie that says significant change is about watching a video, or significant change is about reading a book, or significant change is about the aha experience, or about coming to even a great session like this. This is just that 20% insight you're getting. And I want to be honest with you, you're not going to get 80% of the value if you're not serious enough to say, I am going to do 15 minutes a day of practice, because that's the muscle building. And I'd love for you to be, and I tell my clients that, and I say, if you're not willing to do 15 minutes a day of practice with me, I'm not going to be able to change your life. And if I can't, then I don't want to work with you, because life is too short. I only want to work with people where I can have a profound, lasting, transformative impact. And so I am that direct with people about it.
Thank you so much, Shirzad. It really was, it's always good to listen to you and see you. And I am so happy to see the positive interactions we are noticing in this chat, how people are enthusiastic about the program. And I truly believe that you are really changing the world. So your mission to change the world is really growing one coach at a time. And I'm super happy that this is happening today, April 8th, and the program still is
Yeah,
the registration happens to end on April 12th, which is going to be a great opportunity to all these people. So I truly suggest that whoever wants to find pods and cannot see all the fast pace of this chat, save the chat. There are people organizing a call after our call here to organize the pod. So you see a lot of Florida people joining the program in this cohort. Okay, so I
well,
will
great. Sir.
share. Thank you, really. I will share my last screen here. So um, please mark your calendars because these series of seminars are really have really great content. So here you have the May, June, August. So we have a lot of great speakers and webinars coming this year. So I look forward to seeing you all soon, right? And if you again join it by phone, remember to send the email to Anik. And Anik, do you have any final word? And
Just wanted to thank Shirzad again for this wonderful webinar. Thank you, Marcia and ICF South Florida for hosting. And thank you to all for your attendance today.
thank you. Thank you. Best of luck in your
Wonderful.
journey. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for the honor of talking to you. Goodbye.
Thank you.